Well, this is payback for the beautiful weather we had last weekend. Last weekend it was 80 degrees, 75, beautiful. Now today it's 48 degrees about and kind of chilly, and it's been rainy and gloomy. And so today is a good day for a Netflix Roulette, I think. Just doing a whole lot of nothing today sounds great to me. Well, hello there, and welcome to a beautiful day for a Netflix Roulette here on Tommy Travels the Second. And today, I picked something a little bit different. Rather than just a regular TV show or movie, I picked kind of a documentary called The Perfect Bid. And it follows a guy named Theodore who has been a fan of The Price is Right ever since the 70s. He appeared on the show over 30 times. And he got to really know the prices. And this is a little bit about his story and how they did this documentary. And if you are brand new to this channel, go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on a thing. And I will see you right after this. One thing that this show has going for it is that it's only an hour and 12 minutes long. So even if you're not a big fan of The Price is Right and you don't know anything about this guy or his story, well, I suppose you don't have to watch it. But if you choose to do watch it, it's only an hour and 12 minutes long. So that's a nice little bonus that it has going for it. But you will like it because it has Bob Barker in it. It's got Drew Carey in it. It's got Theodore Slauson, the guy who the show centers around, in it, and they do a good job of telling the story. And so, what the heck? I figured I'll click on it and see what it's all about, and it is a very entertaining little story. And so this show centers around three main people. Of course, Theodore Slauson. He's the one that keeps showing up in the audience on The Price is Right. And he is very good at math and tries to learn all the prices, and you learn a little bit about him and how he got to be a fan of The Price is Right. But then it flips quickly to the producer, whose name is Roger Dobkowitz, and he was started with The Price is Right all the way back from the beginning when they brought it to become a daytime TV show. He started basically with Bob Barker and ran all the way up through Drew Carey's first season, and then he was finally let go. So they give him a point of view in this documentary, as well as Bob Barker himself. And they do a good job of not spending too much time on one person. They start out with Theodore and introduce him, and then they'll switch over and do a kind of a rotation like that. So it keeps it real interesting, and they get all 3 points of view in at once on any topic that they're talking about, and it makes it pretty fun to watch. This was kind of a cool show to watch because if you are a fan of The Price is Right, and I am, because I remember as a kid, just as a really little guy, a very little Tommy Travels, my mom would be around the house doing housework, and The Price is Right would be on, and I'd watch Bob Barker and watch the people play those games. It was always fun. And then through the years, whenever I would call in sick from work or be stuck with a flat tire at the shop, Price is Right seems to be on at those times. And so it's always kind of a fun little rush that brings me back to my childhood whenever I get a chance to see that show. So if you are a fan of The Price is Right, it gives you a little bit of behind the scenes on what it's like to be a contestant on the show. You turn it on and you see the people in the studio audience. You don't think about what it took to get there and the process that they have to go through to get selected to be on the panel to do bids on products and what all goes into that. And so just for that alone, it was worth the watch for me. So nowadays we have literally hundreds of options for things to watch on TV. Plus, we've got lots of ways to watch them. Multiple TVs in the house. You can watch things on a phone or an iPad. So if somebody else is watching something you don't want to watch, you can go to another room and watch something else. Easy, easy, easy. But this story takes place way back in the day, in the early 70s, when there was only 3 networks and PBS, and then there was only one TV in the house, and that was the situation that Theodore Slauson found himself in. And he had brothers and sisters that wanted to watch The Price is Right. So he begrudgingly watched an episode, and it turned out that he liked it. By the end of the episode, he was hooked, because Theodore happened to be very good at math. And then to see all the prizes, the refrigerators and cars and appliances and all those different things, and the math that was involved with trying to guess how much to bid on all of those items, put the 2 and 2 together, and it really created a new passion in his life. And boy, did it ever become a passion. And so Theodore fell in love with The Price is Right, and he started watching it very regularly. And him and his brother started to notice something, that these prizes that were showing up each and every day, a lot of them were repeats from ones that showed up a day or 2 before that. And so they'd see the fridge and already know that's $5.99 because they just saw it. And all sorts of other items started reappearing as well. And so that's when the bell went off. Theodore realized that if you became enough of a observer of The Price is Right and the appliances and all of the prizes that show up on that show, and if you made notes and memorized all of the prices, you could really do well on that show. And so that became his goal. And his dad was in the military, so they moved around a lot, but luckily they settled in LA, which made it very convenient for him to be able to show up and stand in line to see if he could get in the audience for The Price is Right, and if he made it into there, to see if he could get picked to be on the show. Now, Theodore did have a full-time job having to do with math. They say what it is on the show, but I already forgot. But that's all right. And so he would go to be in the audience once a year on The Price is Right, and he was prepared, more prepared than probably anybody has ever been to be on any show, because he wrote his own computer program. They show it a little bit in this documentary, and it's quite crude looking now, but back then, probably pretty advanced. And it doesn't even matter about the quality anyway, because it did what he needed to do, which was simulate all of the games from The Price is Right with all of the prices that he programmed in from watching the show. And so he could play all the games just like he was on the show and confront with all of the real prices. And he had them all memorized. And absolutely unbelievable talent for memorizing all of this, because there are thousands of products and prices and different versions of products that look the same, but because they have other features on them, are slightly more or less expensive than the other ones. And he had them all pretty much memorized, down cold. Unbelievable. So that's about as much as I want to tell about what happens during the whole thing, because really, it's only an hour long, and I don't want to spoil what really happens. That's the fun of watching it. But I will say this, that Drew Carey's been hosting The Price is Right now for a while now, and you know, you kind of forget about Bob Barker. It's almost one of those things. Now, I know he retired. Is he still with us? Or so it was kind of nice to see him and hear some stories from his point of view, and you just forget what a great sense of humor that he had during that show. I think that's part of the reason he lasted 35 years as a host of that show, is his ability to interact with the audience members and make a, you know, somewhat mundane thing and turn it into something actually really funny that people laugh out loud at. And one of the sweet things that happened in the documentary is when Bob Barker was telling a story about how in between commercial breaks and every chance that he could, he would go step out and talk to the contestants and the audience members and things like that. And they'd say, "Bob, why do you do that?" And he says, "Well, because if it wasn't for those people, I'd have to work for a living." And so, you know, I've always loved Bob Barker, and so it was really neat to see him again as well. So it gets a point just for having Bob Barker in it. Plus, I always like Bob Barker for the boxing match he gets into with Adam Sandler. That is one of the classic scenes in movie history. And so this movie, The Perfect Bid, gets a 6 on a scale of Eat, Pray, Love to 10. Why doesn't it get a higher score? Because it's not one of these earth-shattering things that it's like, you have to see this, you gotta go out and see it. And it's not something that was a disappointing watch in any way either. It's just sort of a middle-of-the-road thing that if you've got some time, go ahead and turn it on, and it's a little entertaining escape for an hour and 12 minutes. And so there's nothing bad about it, nothing great about it, but it is an interesting story that will take you along for a nice little ride and be worth your time. Well, this has been another successful Netflix Roulette here on Tommy Travels the Second. Thank you so much for watching today. And if you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit like on my YouTube channel. While you're at it, go ahead and hit subscribe and the little bell notification next to it so you can be the first to know when a new adventure comes out. And thank you so much for the support that you've given me so far. And until next time, I hope to catch you on the flip side. And it's called The Perfect Bid. And it's about a guy who was a huge fan of The Price of Right.